Oh yeah. Time to get serious now.
Yeah, let me put on my voice.
Everyone thinks you're AI anyways, you know?
I'm not? Oh shit. I mean, I'm not, right.
Okay, cool. All right, so you've been a friend of the channel for a while, Hypertension Johnny. One thing I wanted to bring you on is just you always cover the grimy, the gritty, the violent, the Max Paynes, the Gears of Wars, Kane and Lynch's, and you seem to kind of have an understanding of like what do you think it is about violent video games that make them instantly compelling?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate that. Secondly, I think that what compels us to violent media in general, we all know, the fascination with serial killer documentaries are through the roof, and violent movies always track well. I think it's because it's a safe way to experience something that's unthinkable, you know? Like I couldn't imagine being Kane and Lynch. I couldn't imagine being Jacket. I couldn't imagine being James Earl Cash and Manhunt, but I've played those games a million times and many like them because it's almost like you get to touch that dark side of your psyche that we know we're all capable of, but without really going to Shanghai and getting in gunfights in greasy DVD stores.
No, of course. Yeah. And like I was kind of thinking about it a little bit. Like there's an example, one of the first violent video games to ever kind of come out was 1976's Death Race, right?
Sure.
Atari. Have you ever heard of that one?
Hmm.
Okay, so you just kind of run it into the gremlins and they scream and a little cross comes up or whatever. That game was a reskin of a Destruction Derby game. So you would just run
Oh,
your yeah.
I didn't know
And
that.
they tried selling Demolition Derby a year earlier, and it did all right, but then there was some licensing problems, and then so they
Right.
did Death Race, and then all of a sudden, or no, Death Race, Death Rally's Remedy. When they did that one, all of a sudden the game started selling like crazy. It became the eighth bestseller of that year, you know.
Sure.
So like there is something, it's not just like I think you're right that there is like a psychological thing, but I do you think kinesthetics play into it? Because it's like a more ridiculous amount of feedback, right? It's one thing to jump on a turtle, but then, like Travis touchdown when you hit him with that like swing across and everyone erupts into a geyser. Like, do you think that is in it as well?
Absolutely. I think that little sensation that you're progressing and doing something extravagant keeps you coming back. I mean, every time I fight the Combine in Half-Life 2 and I get a headshot up close and they make that crackly radio noise and
Yeah.
then they flip backwards and a splatter of blood goes up against the wall, it's like there's just something about that loop where you're like, oh, I got to do that again, even though it's morbid. I think part of that is our morbid curiosity as well. We're like, ooh, what happens if I do this? It's like Frogger. We all, whether we want to admit it or not, intentionally got run over just to see what would happen. You don't
Instantly.
want to see the frog get hurt, but you're like, well, fuck it, I'm give it a go.
Yeah, even in like 2026, anytime or 2025, sorry, I'm in the future right now. But
I feel you.
anytime I come across like a land bridge or something like that in a video game, no matter what game it is, I immediately have to jump off just
Of
to see
course.
if it's in the parameters. And, whenever I'm playing something and there is an invisible wall in this day and age, I'm just like, okay, I don't jive with you as much as I did before, you know?
Yeah. I do feel like I don't know, my heart is simultaneously softening and hardening towards violence. It's this really weird middle ground where I'm like, every time I see violence, I'm repulsed by it. But again, in the safe space of a game or a movie or whatever, I seem to be more and more attracted to it. I don't know. It feels like some sort of evolutionary thing where it's like, especially nowadays where we're so connected to the world like this, every time I boot up social media, and I rarely do anymore, it's always violence. It's always anger and chaos and misery. And that's what sells. That's why media publishes that stuff because they know it'll get clicks.
Yeah.
And video game developers, I don't think they have a malicious intent, like they're trying to draw people in via violence. But I think it is appealing because we all have that sort of evolutionary thing where we want to see, okay, am I capable of doing something so terrible just in case, God forbid, I go out in the world and I encounter that stuff that I see on social media as a drip feed into my brain every day? Am I going to be ready to combat that? Even though I don't think that's a conscious thought when you're playing a violent game.
No, I think most of us kind of treat it like that glorified feedback, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat, you do the code, you rip someone's head off. It's
Oh
this
yeah.
like big, confetti almost, like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's this really visceral feedback, but there is something about like just being a human. Like there was in I don't know if you have you ever played any of the Persona games?
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
Okay, so like Persona 5, it's kind of taking in like the social media kind of that's a part of the game. And there is this scene where it's very early on in the game, so I wouldn't count it as big that much of a spoiler. It's a prologue shit. But one of your classmates jumps off of the roof. She's basically been subjected to some pretty gnarly shit, decides to take that way out, survives, but all you see is your entire class, and they've all got their phones up and they're recording.
Of course.
And it was pretty gnarly because like I was playing that game, and it was just at this right time where like I had to actually stop playing the game right then and there and come back to it later because at that time I was going through some stuff and I was just like, I don't need to be reminded that
Yeah.
because it hit it was a little too on the nose, you know?
It's very
Um,
heavy.
yeah, but it's also very real, like
Hmm.
anytime I see any type of mental breakdown in the streets or whatever, there is this like put it on World Star kind of,
Of
obviously.
course.
So, but there is this like kind of thing where it's like it's not like in the writing I'm basically saying like just human recreation in and of itself typically kind of parrots violence. Cops and robbers tag is hunter versus hunted. MMA, basketball, football, they have their analogs to ritualistic sacrifice, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So it's deep within us, but then it almost felt like with video games, you had very like kid friendly stuff, jumping on turtles, maybe shooting a abstract asteroid or alien or whatever. But then after a while, it seemed like once we got past like Doom, it seemed like that we had kind of like once we had that permission structure of like, okay, you are allowed to show violence and gore that is kind of tied somewhere to realism. It kind of became this like gold rush where you started to get more and more stuff that was pushing the envelopes, right? Like you got like Grand Theft Auto 3, you got I'm blanking, but you already Manhunt,
Hmm.
and it seemed like for a while it was just Postal, and some of them felt like parody. Mortal Kombat is parody, but then when you look at like Mortal Kombat like 9 with the anatomically correct, like everything just ripping like because Mortal Kombat 3 you uppercut someone and they explode into like 20 rib cages, right?
Yeah, I remember that. They had about 30 humerus bones.
Yeah. But then there became this like anatomically correct stuff. And like even in like Last of Us 2, there's like straight up you can hear like tracheotomies being done,
Hmm.
So it seems like there is this kind of push to go as violent as you can. And then I think it wasn't until maybe about like Hotline Miami or No More Heroes or Spec Ops: The Line, where I started to really see people kind of like exploring what what are we doing here? What are we glorifying?
Yeah.
Are there any other examples of games that you think like maybe did that, or do you think Manhunt is playing it straight, or do you think Manhunt is critical?
Manhunt's the perfect example because, and this is why I seem to come back to it so often, is because, I mean, not only is it just, and this is something I'm talking about in my current script, it's just a fun game to play. Like the
Yeah,
basic hide in the shadows, whack-a-mole, run away, hide in the shadows. It could be done with kittens and rainbows and it would still be very fun mechanically. But the theory that I've read the most and I agree with the most is that the camera, this you're in a snuff film and they're filming you wherever you go in the early parts for depraved audiences around the world that buy this garbage. And the theme itself, if you take it at face value, is really grim and it's grimy and it's appealing on this sort of grungy, creepy level. You know, I grew up on horror movies and black metal music and all this like dark stuff, but there's more of a meta commentary, of course. There's more of a meta commentary where it's you're the audience, you're watching this happen, and then at the end of the level, you're given a rating. This is how violent you were. Good job. You did it. You killed in the worst possible way. Congratulations. And there's a theory that at the very end of the game, you break in on Starkweather, the ultimate bad guy. Spoilers, he dies. But you kick in the door and he's surrounded by his desk and his monitors, and he's in a really dark room. And a lot of people have speculated, and I agree completely, that it's sort of you are the audience member, you're the game player. You've been watching and orchestrating this horror from the comfort of your chair in this big, dark, almost entertainment room.
Yeah.
And you're the guy narrating and mandating what happens next. And that's why they give you that feedback at the end of the game where they say, hey, great job. You killed in the worst possible way. Here's 5 stars. You did it fast too. Good job, buddy. I sort of think that that's the game, Rockstar Games, saying, you know, and I mentioned this in my Manhunt review. Are you proud of yourself? Are you really enjoying what you're seeing? Are you trying to get better scores? What's wrong with you? Why are you so fascinated by this? I think there's that layer of meta commentary where they're almost kind of calling out the player a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for playing our game. Thanks for the money, but
you're a piece of shit. Yeah.
You're fucked up.
Yeah.
And there's a game that I'm referencing on the current video called Blood Trail, which is a VR game. And it's disgusting. It's pure violence for the sake of violence. It's hatred dialed up to 20. It's gruesome. And there's all sorts of videos online where people are doing the most, you know, cutting the Joker smile into cheeks and all this stuff through VR. And because it's so lifelike, because it's VR, there are people out there that are like, this is my best kill. And it's sort of like, it's a little bit of a lens into people's psyche. And the developer of the game, they're just whatever. I don't know them personally, but and the sales pitch, they're like, this is for your sick mind and your sick fantasies. And it's like, I don't know. I go 50-50 on watch lists. On one part, I'm like, that's breaching freedoms, but maybe there are a couple of people to keep an eye on.
Yeah. You know, I don't want to be the one that pulls the trigger on that, but I've definitely had similar thoughts, you know. Yeah, like just even with that like suicide of Rachel Foster video I put, like so many of the comments are anyone involved with this game should be on a watch list. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about all of that. Like, I don't want to we don't know their intentions. They haven't done interviews. Maybe they had, you know, some way different intentions. Maybe they're embarrassed by the feedback. They're gonna make a sequel. We'll see what happens. I'm down to check it out. But like, there is like, it's weird when you get into that kind of violence or that kind of taboo. Like, there is going to either be these like staunch defenders that come and just go like, no, 100% freedom of speech. We should be able to, you know, yell fire in a crowded movie theater. And then you have other people that are like, but what are we doing here? You know?
And the problem is a lot of people that have gone on to do terrible real things in society. It turns out a lot of them have been on watch lists. So I don't know what good it does, because a lot of these people that walk into a school with a rifle and kill a bunch of people, they're like, oh yeah, the FBI had tabs on him. They were being warned weekly, like something's wrong. So apparently it doesn't do any good anyway. Or is there a darker, more insidious purpose for all that, which we don't have time to get into here? But
no, you know, I in your Manhunt 2 video, I commented MK Ultra mentioned we're staying, like, you know, so I mean,
and that's very real. MK Ultra, horrifying. And then it links into Operation Paperclip, and there's a whole I mean, you could go down the rabbit hole for hours, but the fact is that anyway, to answer your question in a roundabout way, the games I enjoy the most, especially nowadays, are the ones that do flip the lens on you. I don't like games like Hatred, because not only is it corny edgelord stuff, and I'm not into that, but it's also it takes itself really seriously, and B, there's no context. It's just some guy killing a bunch of people for the sake of getting people worked up on the internet to go, have you seen this scary, awful game? Whereas in Manhunt, there's layers and layers of context and it's very well fleshed out. So there's that as well. So I don't know. I like games like Hotline Miami where they're I also love that spoilers that at the end everyone gets nuked.
Yeah, no.
It seems like the most appropriate swipe the slate clean, everything sucks, let's start over.
So yeah, we I think that we kind of got the little bit of video game violence stuff out the way. And believe me, this is all going to be cherry picked. You know, by the end of it,
Sorry
I'm
for rambling.
no, 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 no. I'm having fun. It's like, dude, it's cool to actually talk to you, man. But there is going to be it's going to be one of those like you know, I grabbed her sweet can, a sweet sweet can by the end of it. You
Yeah.
know, I'm going to have you, you know. Basically saying all sorts of fucked up shit by the end of this. I'm kidding, of course, but but the thing is, so Hotline Miami, right? Like the game is pretty. If we look at it on like a face value, it's probably one of the more brutal depictions of violence, top down, instant kills on your side and on theirs. Just explosions of gore, even though it's pixelated, it's striking enough to tell you everything you need to know. Like when you have like one of those heavies running at you and you hit him with a shotgun, you see it that he's ripped in half, kind of thing.
It's brutal.
And it's super brutal. And you know, a little bit of a little abstract, but like enough to kind of get you there. And the thing is, like, that game, I think that right away they were like aware of how violent it was. Even I've heard in some interviews they were like, "Yo, like, if we're not careful, this is just Columbine Simulator type stuff." You know what I mean? Like,
interesting. I never read that. That's awesome.
yeah, like they, I guess it was one of those situations where the two guys linked up. One of them was the artist mostly, and then one was the programmer. He had a prototype. I forget the name of it. I'll have it in the video.
Sure.
But basically he like, you know, had this kind of run and gun 2D fuck 'em up kind of like, you know, prototype. They started messing with it, but then they were like, yeah, like all we are doing here is just fucked up violence, right? And
Sure.
so that's where the meta commentary starts to come up. And like, in your opinion, like like what do you think, how do you think Hotline Miami's meta commentary works? Like, do you feel like they are being critical of violence in a decent way?
I feel like it's yes, to answer your question in one word, yes, I feel like it's effective, but it doesn't beat you over the head with it, ironically. It doesn't say, "Hey, you're bad for enjoying this game. How dare you enjoy playing this?" Because like you were talking about earlier, it is that feedback is so addicting. Shards of glass go everywhere, furniture explodes, etc., etc. It is really fun to play that game just on a mechanical level. And the violence is effective in getting across how terrible violence really is. It's a really stylish game, which is what attracted most of us to it. It's super, super. The music is incredible. The graphics are amazing, especially for guys like us who came up with that stuff when it was new. I hate to say. But at the same time, I also felt, and not to keep bringing it back to Manhunt, but it's like Manhunt where when I play Hotline Miami, in the moment, I'm like, this is amazing. And then when I'm done with a level, I'm like, I feel greasy. I feel terrible. And when you're sitting in your dirty little apartment reflecting on what you just did, it's just like, what am I doing? I should I should be saving the princess in the castle. Like, I feel so gross about it. So if that was their intention, then they succeeded. But I also think, again, not because I'm super smart, but because you should be paying attention and it's not forced on you. Again, you're not beat over the head with how terrible you are. And there's also a lot of commentary, especially in part two, of how much of this is real, how much of this is unreliable narrators and so forth.
Or a movie that's being
Right. What was his name? Is it Martin Brown?
Yeah, it is like, I think it is Martin Brown, but yeah, they're doing the butcher thing, and then there's the,
Yeah.
but then he gets, you know, I'm not trying to be funny when I say Jason Lead, on the set kind of shit. And
Yeah,
I think when you're talking about is it intentional? I mean, first, like the game does start off with, do you like hurting people, right? Like they are
of course, right.
immediately, yeah, like they want you to answer that question. They're not asking Jacket. Jacket doesn't have
Right.
a personality. Jacket doesn't do or say anything other than, you know,
Kill.
kill or pick up, a lady, and then that's about it, really.
Right, right.
And then, but then there is that magic trick, right? Where you and I are playing this game. Mechanically, it is so fun. Like, peeking around corners, dodging bullet, just shotgun blasts, just so you can kind of like get them to come and run at you.
Mm-hmm.
It's that soundtrack that's just like thumping and hypnotic and perfectly
Yeah.
looped, and you're just in, and like that window between death and success is like so tight that hitting retry is like a no-brainer every time, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like Tony Hawk, where it's just like, I'm gonna get that perfect run. And
Gotta.
but then when you finally, do it, there is that like they cut out the audio, and now you're just in that room, and you're always on the top floor or the bottom floor, whatever,
Yeah.
and you have to go through the carnage, right?
And reflect on the things you just did.
Right. But I think in a really interesting way, it's like I've been playing this game. I just played both of them back to back, and it's like on one hand, it's effective, right? It's a dope trick. But then on the other, like the game itself is asking you, like it gives you the grade, it gives you unlockables, it gives you all these things. The game wants you to continuously play, and that
Mm-hmm.
means go back and fuck them up more, right? And like after the 20th try trying to do an A+ run on some of these levels, I feel almost blind to that emotional impact of the magic trick. Like I feel it on one hand, like I know it's there and I'm aware of your messaging, but I've spent a disproportionate amount of time being a fucking menace. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do think it. I remember when in high school we watched like a frontline. I took a course called American Media Studies, and we took a day we watched a frontline special or something like that about video game violence. And being a outspoken nerd, I was like, they asked us after the presentation, and I said, no, of course not. It doesn't influence you whatsoever. Video games have no effect on your psyche. And I got into an argument with a girl in class who said it. She argued that it did, and we went back and forth. And actually, this is a true story. We ended up dating as a result of our conflict.
There it is.
We kind of talked in the hallway, and it was like, oh, like you just felt that vibe, you know. But she made salient points, and I basically do what I always do, which is, you know, outpour emotion. But looking back, I don't think video games make people violent. I don't think anybody plays a video game and goes, oh, I got to go do this. I think it's nature versus nurture. I think in our nature, we're all bred to protect ourselves. And some people are raised to defend others or defend themselves in to varying degrees. But I have to say, the older I get and the more I reflect on all the hours I put into games like Hotline Miami, I do feel like, God forbid, and I really mean this, God forbid, because I'm Mr. gun-toting, Kung Fu Louie, but like, it's my biggest fear to ever have to
Oh yeah, dude.
use that thing. It's not
Yeah.
cool to
No, I
me.
mean, like growing up, I grew up, single mom, latchkey kid,
Yeah, of
skater, skate rat. So like I got into some fights, and
course.
did some wrestling for high school, all that kind of stuff. To this day, if I think back and like, I remember punching a kid in the face as hard as I could and then
Yeah,
going home and crying about the fact that I did that. Like once the adrenaline dump was over, and then you're just thinking like you're keyed up and you're
yeah,
coming down, and then you think about like the harm you caused, and then you think about the
it's
kids
horrible.
laughing at this kid that got punched, and it's just like, fuck, man, like I'm not
Yeah,
contributing anything good. Now amplify that times a million. Home invader
permanent.
coming in to, get a, grab your computer or whatever, and now he's
Right.
Swiss cheesed. Like it's not gonna feel good. Like, you know what I mean?
No, and that's the problem. We see it all the time. And again, this is just the human condition being regurgitated to us every second of every day on social media, where anytime I see a video where somebody like give someone the finger as they're walking by on the crosswalk, there's always 50 fuds that are like, he'd be breathing out of his new asshole and all this stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, do you not realize how devastating it is to shoot another person and how horrible it is
Yeah.
and how scary that is? That's assuming that you actually go through with it, but it's awful, man. And I hope to God never, ever, ever to have to do something like that. It's one of my worst fears.
Yeah.
But oh, so funny you say that. When I went to 4 different middle schools because we bounced around a lot. Same thing, divorced parents, yada yada. So when I started at this place in Plymouth, Michigan, real hoity-toity, blah blah blah, and I'm like this dirtbag lower middle class kid. This kid named, I won't say his full name, John P, who taunted me all week, you know, giving me little pats on the face in the locker room and gym class, like real provocative stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to fight at the dance this upcoming Friday, right? Classic middle school bullshit. And I'm like, no, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm good. And everybody called you the prerequisite names, you can guess. But some kid put up the money for my ticket to go to the dance. So I went
Dude,
and
kids
I
are so
danced.
crazy.
Everybody, well, and this is again,
Yeah.
people love, if you watch I respect the shit out of mixed martial artists. It's incredibly difficult, amazing athleticism, hardworking people, unbelievable talent with the martial arts. But this like ravenous desire we have to see somebody get fucked up. We want to see the worst knockouts. We want to see the blood. We want to see their eye pushed in and their jaw shifted this way. Everybody wants that
No.
for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
I know they
But
do, but it always makes me uncomfortable as shit.
well, and what do you, not to go off on a tangent, but a broken arm will mend. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, however, especially repeated bouts of traumatic brain injury, good luck.
And
You're
then
gonna have,
even if they survive it, they might become everybody else's problem. Like, you know what I mean?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
we see that a lot with and I'll get back to the John P story in 2 seconds, but
Yeah.
a lot of veterans come back and suffer traumatic brain injuries. It's not so much the stuff they see, which is traumatic enough. It's sort of how many blasts have you taken?
Yeah.
How
How
many,
much has your brain just been rattled around?
and it's messes up your hormones and sends your testosterone and all that stuff into the toilet. Then you come back and the VA fills you up with antidepressants of all flavors. And then they say, okay, don't drink with these, right? And these guys
Go
are going,
be a
yeah,
human.
sure.
Yeah.
And then they got wild turkey and 50 antidepressants. And they're like, huh, why are 22 of these guys killing themselves every day? I can't quite figure it out. And then they go to the VA and they go, yeah, sorry, we don't have a place here right now. Come back Saturday. Not to be too specific, but there was somebody recently in life who offed themselves in a parking lot of a VA. And I just happen to know this. In the parking lot on a Saturday, young guy just takes his own life, and that's that.
Yeah.
And then everybody just sort of moves on. What are we doing to address the problem, really? But anyway, that's a whole other thing.
So heads up, we got 10 minutes
Okay,
on
okay.
this. Before I think we could rejoin, but we got 10 minutes for now. So,
Okay.
but yeah, so John P.
Oh, so we go to the dance. He's taunting me all night, talking shit, and I'm having a great time actually dancing. Being the half a fruit that I am, I'm like, yay, woohoo, we're dancing, we're having
You can
fun.
count to 4, man. You got rhythm. You know?
I can't. All my songs are in 4/4, but anyway,
Yeah.
um, we go out. The dance ends. Everybody's done. So they're like, all right, everybody. The whole school apparently knows about this, and it's like a movie. Everybody files out to the back of the school, and I'm sitting there begging him, like, I don't want to do this. This is so stupid. And everybody's like, pussy, and all this other stuff, whatever. He takes a can of silly string and he starts hosing me with it.
Great.
And I just remember, like, this is like a movie, but it's the truest story, 100% true. Everybody's behind him like a movie, and they're all laughing. And I can see that sort of Chris from Sopranos moment where you're in slow motion, and you're like, what the fuck? And so finally, I just instinct took over, and I just straight right between his eyes, I hit him as hard as I could. I finally had enough. Like after a few weeks of all this crap, and then finally, now I'm covered in silly string, getting humiliated, and I finally had enough.
Yeah.
Instinct kicked in.
Yeah.
So I hit him as hard as I could. My mom dated a guy who taught me how to throw punches. He was a Golden Gloves fighter, so I know at least how to do that. And it knocked him square out. And I remember the look on his face. He curled up like Dracula, and his eyes went cross, and he fell back over.
Ugh.
And then everybody was dead silent.
Yeah. It's not funny
And
anymore.
And I'm like, everybody's like, oh, this is real.
This is the
And I said,
consequence. Yeah.
now leave me the fuck alone. And I walked off. And like you said, this is an exact story. My mom came 5 minutes later to pick me up, and I get in the car and I just started bawling. And I said, why did that happen?
Yeah.
It's just so stupid. So it wasn't worth it. He was fine, thank God. But people fall and hit their heads and get killed all the
Oh
time.
yeah, game over. You know, like
And
we're
now
not
you're
that.
fucked.
Yeah, and it is like, in a way, I think that it, if video games and movies and like simulated violence have any type of blame in our understanding of violence, I don't think it's monkey see, monkey do. I
Hmm.
think it is we are constantly overestimating our capabilities. You watch John Wick, you watch The Raid, you watch UFC trained fighters, and in your mind, you're like, I can get in there, I can throw this guy in a guillotine, I can do like takedown, all that kind of stuff. And you don't realize that that one stray is just over. Like you might be
Yeah.
dead, you might be paralyzed, whatever. And I think that if anything, like that sequence of like a hero's death where they're getting lit up and the chants come in and all that kind of stuff, like in real life when someone gets hit they slump over like meat in the
Instantly.
corner, like it's done.
Yeah.
I've seen enough real world violence and enough dead people just from living a weird life. It's never this, like holding their hand and wishing them well, or greeting them at Valhalla. It's just robot, like power off, and
Lights out.
yeah, lights out. And so yeah, I mean, like Hotline Miami, I think you're 100% right. Like it's there, and somebody like you and me who's paying attention to the story, we are immersed in, like, you know the gameplay, the violence, all that. We fall for the magic trick, we see the nuke, and to me that is like, years later when I think back to Hotline Miami, it is Richter sitting on the couch ready for it all to end. You,
Yeah.
you don't got much time left, and it's just that white crawl. And
Yeah.
it's perfect. Richter, by the way, like his missions, man,
The
are,
best.
dude. You
Yeah.
want to talk? You want to talk a little bit about Richter? What do you remember?
Yeah. Richter the Rat. My memory's a little hazy, but I do remember being completely enamored by every Richter mission. I'm trying to recall which one was my favorite. It's been about 7 or 8 years since I played Hotline Miami 2. Oh, you know
Well,
what?
I'll
You're
give
more
you
recent.
I'll put you just like I'll give you the clip notes and maybe I'll jog you up. So you find out that his mom's sick. He's kind of been getting these phone calls. They've already torched his car. He knows that this 50 blessings thing is something he's not going to be able to ignore anymore.
Yeah.
And so they send him out, and his missions are literally like open the door and people just flood you. Like his,
Yeah.
like most characters, it would be the thing where you enter in and maybe there's like that initial one guy you got to take out, and then from that point you have a weapon and you can kind of be on a fair thing. With this, you're unarmed, someone's rushing you with a knife, and like there's like two more people with weapons right there. If you
Yeah.
don't knock that guy out and grab his weapon, you
It's
lose,
over.
you
Yeah.
know and so like it's really like, I think for me, his character, not just like the intensity of the levels, but just also like the unfairness of like him being thrust into that situation and then having him be like the ultimate bad guy in the first game too. Like
Yeah.
it's like it almost was on par with like Last of Us 2, where it's like by the end of that, Ellie is the monster, right? Like
Yeah.
and like it's this really cool sequence where it's like I do like being kind of made to feel like the most awful people are kind of like, I don't know how to phrase it. Like, I like that trick of making somebody that you thought was irredeemable kind of become like this character that you can glom onto a little bit.
Yeah. He is an excellent arc, especially with the mother stuff. It's perfect. It's such a simple little thing.
Yeah,
I'm protecting my ailing mother. 50 blessings is threatening that. I can't let it happen. But eventually you become the monster.
yeah.
Or, like you said, redeem.
Or and then when it's all said and done, you know, they were using all of these characters as pawns, and that's kind of what
Right.
you and I were talking about. Just you know, MK Ultra, or just you know, why is it that these people on these watch lists aren't being intervened with? And it's you know, ultimately these characters were used in this like kind of Cold War dynamic, right? Like they're fighting the Russians, they're fighting the Americans, and it escalates till both the world leaders are taken out, and now you just got to sit on the beach and watch that atomic sunset, you know?
I think that was such a great way to end the series too, where the developers were like, "We said everything we needed to say. That's it. Literally nuke it."
And I think that, you know, you'll see it in the video, but I guess like the developers of the second game was harder. It was more of a puzzle game than a Twitch reaction game. You know, you kind of had
Hmm.
to figure out the order of operations of how to take these people on. And so as a result, people were kind of disappointed with it as a sequel, right? They were like, I want more of the same. This is more grandiose storytelling, more structured levels. There's characters like the writer who, you know, you are supposed to play as kind of a pacifist, like, you know,
Yeah.
you know, um, and like they didn't like it, and like so the writers the developers apparently like the reason we haven't gotten a follow-up from those guys is because they were met with death threats and shit like that, like you fucked up our game, you made
Classic.
yeah, and it's just like you got two Swedes that are probably just like listening to Refused and Perturbator and shit, just
Yeah.
chilling the
Making
fuck out.
fun video games.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I like the end of it, if you remember, and I know you do because you probably just played it, but at the end, it segues into Hotline Miami 3.
Yes.
And you're like, oh shit. I remember being like, great. And then it's just basically says, like, here's your level editor. Go make your own Hotline Miami 3.
Yeah.
And I remember being like sad because, of course, I wanted more, but being like, kudos, like, well played.
But where else could you take it, you know?
You
Like
can't.
but
I like that personally. I don't know.
me too. And like we have a minute left, so it's gonna cut.
Check.
We can decide if we want to talk a little bit more. But what do you call it? The thing that I think is so interesting, it's almost worth. Let me see if I can get us in
Yeah,
again.
we can get a no. We can get another one.
Okay, cool. All right, stop recording.
And I got this coaster.
Very sick. Yeah, dude. Like when I saw that ashtray for Control, I was just like, "You
Woo!
motherfuckers!" Like, you know.
Yeah, you know, you couldn't resist.
I'm gonna end up buying a pack of just camels just for old time's sake.
Yeah,
You know,
really.
it's been a couple years. Um, but yeah, I think what I was trying to get at while we were running out is it's very interesting to me that like if you look at certain video games like and movies, but
Mhm.
you get something like Hotline Miami, and there's this connection to Jacket, right? Even though he's kind of a cipher, or just an avatar. Like I was reading some comments and some videos while I was doing some research, and there is this like concept of could they do Hotline Miami 3? Would Jacket die in a nuclear blast? Like they want to believe that this character could get out. You know, there's nothing
Sure.
showing that he is superhuman or anything like that, other than because like we've played all the trial and error, right? Like we've all died as Jacket 2 million times.
Of course.
So it's like he's a flesh puppet just like anybody else. But there is this connection to him. And like I think on something like Ellie or Joel is probably the best example. We played as Joel, we understood his motivations. Me personally, I thought he was a piece of shit for dooming mankind and you know protecting but you know other people are like no you don't understand that connection, she's a daughter, you got to protect her kind of thing. So there's that, right? There's always different reads on it. Even something like Life is Strange, you have the choice of saving one character or dooming an entire town, and I always look at it like let's minimize harm on a global scale if we can, you know.
Right.
But
Utilitarianism.
it isn't like cold reptilian utilitarianism.
Right, right, right.
It's just more like hey man, like all these are people too. Just because I this one had more screen time, I don't think that they're
Right.
more worth it, you know? Like but that's like my own personal thing. Uh fuck. I guess cycling back to like Hotline Miami, we've kind of talked about commentary on violence. We've talked a little bit about mechanics, but why don't you tell me like what your opinions are on the game's like just vibes and music? Because I know you've said that the music influenced you in a lot of ways.
Tremendously. Yeah. Um, not that I consciously think of any particular artist when I make music. Not specifically. I don't go like, oh man, today's a Dream Theater day or whatever. It's just whatever comes up in the experimentation process. But if I had to pick at something that in particular like sticks out as like a big influence that sticks in the back of my mind, Hotline Miami is one of the biggest ones. Um, that game was, I don't know, it's perfect. I remember seeing the screenshots on Steam and being like, oh, this looks cool. It's kind of retro. It sort of looks like 8, maybe 16-bit, graphics and all that stuff. Neat. And I always had this weird, like, endless fascination with 80s and 90s Miami. Like, it was such a mix of weird, seedy
Well, you got the Tom
underworld.
Selleck mustache for it, you know what I
That's right. Old Magnum. No, nobody had one that powerful. But
mean?
I don't know. I just have like a weird fascination with periods of time that I didn't live in. I was born in '88, so like I guess I was existing, but you know what I mean.
Well, you and I were both at that perfect age where Miami, uh, Vice City, it hit hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and
Like,
that's why Vice City was so appealing to me. I remember specifically because it was like, okay, I didn't live through that, but it was just before, and it was still felt culturally
yeah,
all growing up in the '90s. It reminds me of that. I'm not going to try to quote it exactly, but that Hunter S. Thompson quote where he was talking about the Haight Ashbury days in the '60s, and he lived it. He was right in the heart of it in the mid '60s, the summer of love and all that. And he said the wave hit this real high mark, and then it rolled back and crashed. And that's kind of what I feel like every decade more or less was like that, especially before everything became, I don't know. We seem to be living in one universal blob right now culturally.
I
There's no
mean,
real,
like, yeah, dude. Like, I could send you some philosophical bullshit, but like, that's what hauntology is all about. Like, that's why I named the channel what it is. Like,
really.
yeah. So, hauntology, the most famous understanding of this concept was made by a music writer named Mark Fisher. He wrote for like an equivalent of like Spin or something like that in the UK, and he kind of came to the conclusion that like most music had kind of like he blames 50 Cent like once it went full commercial, once gangster rap no longer meant anything kind of thing, selling vitamin
Right.
water. He was like listening to like Arctic Monkeys and uncertain where it fit. Like he's like, is this a 60s track? Is this a 2000s track? Is this 2010s?
Hmm.
He realized that post 2006-ish, it was kind of like impossible to figure out where we were. And hauntology is just this concept of, it's tied to like capitalist realism, where it's just like we've kind of cracked the formulas. Like we know what's going to make money at this point.
Right.
So, and really it is kind of nostalgia baiting. And like, we can live in these cycles of, there's a Spider-Man movie for when you're coming into adolescence, there's one for when you're an adult, and then there's one for you to bring your kids to, you know?
True.
And so we are holding on to these like proven ideas instead of branching out and finding our new ones. Like, if I ask you to name some 70s music, it's not going to be that difficult, like
No.
if I ask you 80s, 90s, 2000s, but like what is like, like you look at something like what was Dua Lipa, right? She's huge, but all of her tracks, like she put out that album like Post Nostalgia or whatever it was called, where it's just all remixes, and like
Hmm.
TikTok music is like all remixes. I mean,
Yeah.
we
It's
can
not
all,
even sampling anymore. It's just the song in a different way,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
right, remix, yeah, but but
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll send you because clearly I'm gonna be butchering it. I got into this topic like the most in that Five Nights at Freddy's video I did, where like I kind of talk about liminal space and like this because like Five Nights at Freddy's and Stranger Things are these really alarming things to me because it's like Five Nights at Freddy's, you have kids that are looking at ostensibly like 80s motifs,
Yeah.
but they're 30, 40 years removed from it. Like they have no context of it other than like maybe their parents can say, here you go. But like Chuck E. Cheese doesn't even really have animatronics in most of their locations anymore.
No, one of my younglings did that recently, and I didn't go. It was a school thing, but they described it, and it sounded. It's the weirdest thing. It liminal is. It's like it sounded like what I remember, but just off, like
Yeah.
an alternate. And I tried to explain animatronics and how it was, and it's what they had that. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember Five Nights at Freddy's? Funny, this is so stupid. I used to go up to the whatever the animal was that played the drum, and I wanted they had a golden Remo snare, and I wanted it so badly, and I just used to watch the animatronic go like bam, bam,
Hover right
bam.
above it.
Yeah, and I wanted it so bad. I wanted that drum. Anyway,
I always wanted to take the chef's head home. Like, you know,
yeah,
the
I
because he was
remember.
always so grotesque. He looked like I didn't know this till later, but he was like Ron Jeremy-esque. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I
it's
mean?
the little things you think of later.
But yeah, so I mean, going back, so you were kind of caught in you have this yearning almost to kind of experience 80s Miami through cultural osmosis, like, or you feel a connection to it, right? Like it's almost like we're like, and that's at the peak of hauntology is you're basically mourning what you will never experience because you're only getting that simulacrum of it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's like we look at the bright palm trees and the cocaine fueled, you know, Lamborghini Testarossas going down the thing, and it's just like that will never be a time that we're actually going to be able to be in, you know.
no, and quite frankly, as someone who's hung out with a lot of people on cocaine, it's actually kind of a pain in the ass more than anything, and
I
it's
know.
really kind of annoying when
Up till
people are
3
like,
a.m. talking about your guitar, you know.
Jesus Christ, yeah, and they're like, let's go tear down the street sign, and you're like, no, no, that's not a good idea. You're gonna hurt yourself. So it is romanticized though, but that's to answer your question, the vibe is so I don't know why. I suppose the way you're reflecting on it is as accurate as I could possibly think, but when I it's like when I see a picture of a sunset, that day glow setting on an old rock formation that's been there for millions of years, and there's trees on top of it, I'm just like, ooh, like it hits
Yeah.
me right, and I can't explain it. It just taps into something buried deep. And that's the same thing with Hotline Miami. There's this weird satisfaction in living. Again, back to the safe conversation. I'm safely existing in a world that really was kind of terrible
Yeah.
for the most part. I mean, it's even worse today with fentanyl and all this shit that's coming to us. But I mean, people are losing their lives to coke and excess,
Oh
and
no.
then of course HIV and AIDS came around, yada yada yada.
And Hotline
But
Miami does not present it as sanitized. Like, you know, like
yeah, yeah,
it's extremely grimy, gritty. Like, you know, like all the character portraits are grotesque. Like there's no
yeah,
like there's I love it. I think it looks gorgeous.
absolutely.
But like, you know, usually you look back at like kind of like, you know, Ray Liotta is, you know, Tommy Vercetti, and like, you know, it's this like kind of Hollywood style production. This is just like, yeah, no, times sucked back then too,
Yeah.
but there is something about it, and like I, went full deep. Like I bought a synthesizer in no small part because of Hotline Miami and the music it introduced me to. Like
Hmm.
I've seen Perturbator like 3 times live. I've gone and seen Carpenter Brute. I've seen Magic Sword. Like I half of my like I bought a record player so I could buy these guys shit, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And like it's interesting because like you and I imagine, you know, even though we're on different coasts, so to speak, like when you were in your like 20s, was the 80s revival out there as well?
Yeah, I'm mostly due to television and stuff,
Okay.
but it wasn't I didn't see anybody walking around in like pastel jumpsuits or anything like starters. Although I do wish reversible basketball jackets would come back, but that's another topic.
No, those are sick. No, I mean, like for us, like out here close to LA, there was like waves of like 80s parties, or clubs would have 80s
Sure.
nights, or like
Hmm.
that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
immensely. That was during a time where I was involved in social life back then,
Yeah.
where I would go out and do stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a long time ago, man. We're getting a little crusty nowadays.
it's almost 20 years.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I look at it and it's like there was that wave of it, but then like it almost felt like pop culture. It always takes a while to catch up to that wave, right? So like we had the
Sure.
80s like kind of, Thursday night, club nights or whatever, and there were a bunch of 18-year-olds going out there, or 21-year-olds or whatever. And then Stranger Things and like Hotline Miami kind of hit like right before all that. Like
It
Hotline,
really did.
yeah,
Kind of an original, really.
yeah, like it like because after Hotline Miami, you had Trials of the Blood Dragon, and then you had like Stranger Things, and like you had this whole wave of like you get to like Thor being in the 80s by the end of it
Yeah.
all, you know? And it was kind of like crazy because like we had this, you know, revival. I think it's just like, it's weird to think that you and I probably grew up on that 70s show. We were completely disconnected from most of what's going on in that, other than
Yeah.
osmosis through our parents.
Yep.
And we grow into our adolescence and we're emulating stuff that was, the kids right before us. And then after that, like now it's all cycled back to like Y2K for the young generation. You know what I mean? And they're
Yeah.
starting to get out of Y2K. Now it's more like when we graduated, like 2006 emo nights are crazy successful nowadays.
Yeah. Really successful. I saw a million last night at the Nine Inch Nails concert.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Well, that's a. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, no, no. Please go ahead.
So, what you were saying about the music with Hotline Miami and how it inspired you to. I I only recently in the past couple of years was able to afford stuff like the keyboard I have now and these sorts of things. And obviously doing the YouTube stuff now has been able to sort of fund my habit.
Yeah.
I put it all back into the channel, so now I have a little bit more to play with. But it all comes back to like that. And seeing when I saw Trent Reznor play last night, it was just like it hit just like Hotline Miami, where it was like shot to the heart, and you're like, this is what I need to be doing more of. Like I should strive to that level. I was joking around the Discord, like feeling inadequate, but it was inadequate because like, okay, you're seeing a professional musician who's been doing this for 40 plus years,
Yeah. You're
who,
never
who
going to be
has,
able to compete with that.
I mean, and he did it, and he came up in a time when like a rock star was really still a thing, and he gathered this huge audience as a result. So I don't expect to, you know, be the next whatever, but that I was on one hand like down about it, where I was like, man, I'll never hit that pantheon, but I was also inspired to like immediately fire up the keyboard and like start putting down some notes, like
Yeah.
let's work on some phrases, like why don't I, anyway, yada yada yada. Hotline Miami had that same effect where I was like, I could create
I think
this.
I think Hotline Miami, in a way, is like more accessible, right? You got two Swedes that are just kids that are making
Yeah.
video games, and then all of those acts, Perturbator, Magic Sword, like they're all at the time unknowns. They were all
Perturbator
SoundCloud.
was a kid.
I
He was
know.
like he was like 15 or something like that, I
Exactly.
think,
Yeah.
which is insane to me.
Yeah, but I mean, if you, and no disrespect to him, I love Perturbator. I have like fucking 8 of his records in my
Sure.
collection right now. But the thing is, like, look back at some of the Terror 404 stuff. Like, it's not that complicated. Like,
No, not at all.
like you could easily be replicating or making something. I would argue that song that the I forgot the name right now. It's the parachute, the Jim Parachute one. Like,
Oh yeah.
I had a very like I was driving home. I put that on Patreon before you had told me I can use it, and I was vibing the fuck out, dude. Like I was like straight up just leaned back in the car going, and then you told me that I can use it, and like I was just like motherfucker, like that is perfect. Like that's fucking perfect. So like the thing is like that's why Hotline Miami hits so hard for me is like it is so punk. Like it is like put it on a fucking 7 inch. Don't let the world stop you. Who cares if it gets big or not? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can't stop the fucking signal. And I think that's my ultimate takeaway from and especially like make noise for 2 games and then just piece the fuck out. Like how fucking like
They could have milked that if they wanted to easily.
yeah. Instead, it's just kind of perfect, you know?
They represent kind of what Rockstar was back in the day. Even though they had massive success with Grand Theft Auto, they were still like the industry bastards, and media was as you remember well, they were constantly talking about how Grand Theft Auto is the worst thing since the bubonic plague, basically. And they thrived in that and said, fuck you, we're going to keep doing it. And that's why games like Manhunt are so cool, because it was so bold, where they were just like, what about it? Here's
Yeah.
this. We could have just, and they did keep making Grand Theft Auto, but they made this weird little punk rock game that was totally off the wall. They didn't have to, but somebody had a kernel of an idea, and it just grew and grew and grew. And that's
Back
what
to
I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Goes back to your like analysis of Manhunt, like where it's like you as the audience are the one kind of dictating this like level of violence, like that three-tiered execution, like you know the color code thing. That alone, I think, kind of sells what you're talking about because like you can go through the level quick, like you know it doesn't take any time to actually kill them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But we all want to see what levels 1, 2, and 3 look like. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I remember getting it from Blockbuster, playing it on my PS2. To be honest, I had to like return that game quicker than others because it left me feeling gnarly. Like,
Yeah. The first time my brother and I rented it, I kind of mentioned where we got it from. We got it off of this really seedy Blockbuster on Michigan Avenue, which is this huge 300-mile strip of just filth and excess. And there's a lot of parts of Michigan Avenue that really resemble Carcer City, where
yeah,
Manhunt takes place. And I was driving through it just last night on my way to the show. And when you get to the Little Caesars Arena downtown, it's really grandiose and cool. But along the way, it's just rotting.
yeah.
And I talk about this in the new review where I've heard this my whole life, where people are like, Detroit's on the come up, it's on the rise. But when you pass through it, it looks the same as it always has. And throwing in a couple of casinos and a couple
Um,
of sports arenas doesn't, it's a big band-aid on what's really wrong with that city, which is way too multifaceted to go over now. But funny story. So when I first played Manhunt, I didn't even know there were 3 levels of execution. So it wasn't until you get to the prison block where they teach you to go further. And I was like, oh, and the first weapon you get is a hammer.
ugh,
And I remember doing that. And at that point, I had played the game up to that point, which is kind of midway through the game. So I
yeah.
was kind of familiar with it. I was like, all right, whatever. And then when I got to like that, I remember feeling like, I don't know if I like this anymore.
I remember straight up, like, you know, bring it back to where we are today, but like, I straight up, like, I forget what I think it was the one where you like plastic bag them and like level
Mhm.
3 is like decapitation, right? Or is that the garrote wire? I've one of them.
That's the, yeah,
Okay.
that's the wire.
So yeah, garrote wire, like, I did the level 3 and you're just sawing through this guy's neck. And I remember like being like, that's enough. We're gonna play Spyro 3, like, you know, like a proper teenager. Like, you know, like it was just
Yeah.
like I needed a palate cleanser, like hard. I mean,
Yeah. We played,
obviously,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, just obviously now you watch it and it's not as grotesque just with time, but back then, like I don't know, I was just like fully in it and it spit me out, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's why I made this, because you remember I played it on first person on stream. Well, it's kind of when you're distracted and you're talking with the boys and doing all that stuff, it's kind of like whatever. And
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times that I was like, this is great, but that wasn't my focus. My focus was on entertaining. So when I went through recently just to make sure the mod still worked once I got the new computer going. And then I started playing through it again and I was like, once I was immersed in it
Yeah.
and it was quiet and all I could hear was the game, and you're putting the bag over the dude's head and you turn him around in first person and you could see the bag going and he's just punching the fuck out of this guy. I remember that was like, yeah, I need to make a new video. I can't set it. I got to do one more. I got to do it.
Yeah,
And
man. So are
You know,
you're revisiting Manhunt for this next one? I'll keep that out of this, but you know,
oh, that's fine. Yeah,
yeah,
Manhunt, 1 and 2 in first person, because it's so much more grim. When
yeah,
that Garrett kill where you knock a guy to his knees, you have him on his knees, you put your knee in his back, and then you whip the wire over, and you just start cluck, 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 and you just hear the guy gurgling. It's like, and again, this is what was that, 2003? So now we're almost 23 years after the fact, and it's so outdated looking. Like the graphics
yeah,
obviously are so old, and they weren't even that good at the time, really. But now it's like still upsetting
yeah.
to play that game. Like it's
Well,
still really depraved.
and I think that that's like just the empathy kicking in, right? Because it's an abstract showing of all this stuff, but if you are in first person and they've taken that abstraction out and now you're even like further like immersed, it's
Hmm.
hard to like for me, I when I was playing Last of Us 2. I remember the first time like I hit someone and you can hear the air whistle through like their chest wound, and like I literally like kind of got grossed out. Like I was just like, fuck, dude. And then you read the development history, and like they were watching like ISIS videos and like fucking like torture porn shit to get inspiration. And I'm like, yeah, man, like I get realism, but
To
like
what end, though?
yeah, like, and then to have people kind of miss the point and think that it's a game about just trans people or whatever, like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, it's
yeah.
just like but I mean, that's just the human condition, right? But yeah, dude, like, it's pretty gnarly. But yeah, I think, I, I think we kind of like nailed it.
Cool,
Other than
man.
just the aesthetics of like those fucking every weapon fire is perfect. Every kill is perfect in Hotline Miami.
Yeah, using a lead pipe. What's
Yeah.
that? Is it the end of the first level? My memory's really hazy, but basically like the last guy, you flip him over on his back and just smash his fucking head.
Yeah.
Again, it's 8-bit, it's top down. It's as removed graphically as a game like The Last of Us 2, which is hyper realistic, but still the punch, the effects of it is so good. Just on a pure design level, like it's so well made. Sound design, and I'll beat this drum till the day I die.
Yeah.
Sound design is critical in games, and when you're playing that and the shot shell pellets burst through glass, and you go, okay, there's my threat over there. I need to not stand in front of these. It all works in concert to make it such a flow. And that's why I think I got A+ on all those levels, because I was like, you get like Tony Hawk, you said it perfectly. I got to get a perfect run. I got to do more. I got to do more. It's a weird. It's. I don't want to say it's a guilty pleasure because I do love it unabashedly.
No,
But
me
yeah,
too.
on reflection of like violence, I love that they turn the camera on you and say, "You're the one doing this, dude. We're not forcing you to play this game."
And then there's like the flipping of the like the player character thing, because they do that shit in the second game where you play as that one bald like what do you call it, mafia enforcer, and then there's the
Oh yeah,
sequence where you come in as the fans and he's just high in the room, and
yeah.
it's pretty fucking horrific, or when you're playing as the son and you have like he's tripping out on those drugs and like he just has all like like the giant animals kind of rushing him like, and that he's just killing your homeboys like just no problem.
Yeah, it's horrible,
It's
but
pretty rad though.
in a great
Yeah.
way though. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that like my channel, I think one of the issues I run into is that like on one hand, like Hotline Miami 10 out of 10, play that shit. I want you to enjoy this. I enjoyed it unabashedly. But now I'm a 37-year-old man looking back at how I was spending my time, and I'm seeing some of this stuff and I'm going like, okay, like what were they saying? And like I think it's
Right.
important to be critical of what, I'm spending my time with, but some people read that criticism as if it's like condemning, and it's not. Like it's yes, like Hotline Miami is a perfect violent video game. It also presents itself as an anti-violence video game, but unless you've played 2 in that sequence with the nuke hits you, you probably just remember how fucking dope it is. Like
Yeah, and
like
rightly so.
Yeah, and rightly so. They earned it, you know.
Well, think about Full Metal Jacket. It's an anti-war film with extreme violence.
Right.
I mean, most people forget, if it's been a while, you forget how really vicious that movie can get at times.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also a condemnation of war and
Yeah.
especially specifically Vietnam. But yeah, have you heard like the near mutiny that was going on with NetherRealm
No.
when they were doing Mortal Kombat? I think they were researching for Mortal Kombat 11, and people were just showing up to work, going to their desk, and they'd walk by somebody watching like hanging videos, and guys are like, "Yeah, I need to see how they twitch and all this stuff." It's like that's the same thing with The Last of Us too. It's like, do you really need to take it that far for the sake of what?
Well,
You could
like
have, I mean, you could have guessed.
I think for me, like when I think of, eventually I'll cover it, but like for me, Last of Us 2 is kind of like a really fucking perfect game. Like I loved it. I know a lot of people didn't. But that sequence where you're fighting Abby at the end and you're like emaciated Ellie and like you're fighting in the water, like fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like as grotesque as it should be. Like
Sure.
obviously that whole sequence leading up to it with like the weird like kind of hillbilly sex slave owners like that. I wasn't really vibing on that,
Greasy,
huh? Yeah, super greasy.
greasy.
But the arc between that character, like you see it at that point, you know what I mean? Like, and I
Right.
saw it, you know, I I was one of those people that kind of went into it where like when Joel gets killed, I kind of view it more like a literary device, knowing like I remember reading Harry Potter as a kid and understanding that like Dumbledore needed to be Obi-Wan Kenobi in order for Harry Potter to become Luke Skywalker, right?
Right. Right.
Like it's a requirement. You got to kill the mentor character. So
Classic.
like yeah, it's everything, right? And so playing Joel, like I knew like this character doesn't get to like live in the Bahamas at the end of this, like you know.
Yeah.
And so, but there was this kind of fucking like people were very angry to see that happen. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I can only imagine being on the other end of those emails.
Yeah.
I've played and watched some things where I didn't like it, but I've never once felt compelled to
Never.
send anybody. I don't even send people. I would never even send a company an email going, "Hey, I didn't like that."
It's
Much
not
less like I'm gonna kill you.
good.
Like I can't even imagine.
I think I would only send an email like that if Costco changed the hot dog price from $1.50. I
Now we're
think,
talking violence.
yeah,
Don't fuck around.
don't fuck around. But yeah, I mean, yeah,
Chicken
dude,
bakes, dude.
yeah. But real quick, man, before we end it, like this is all
Sure.
out of the video at this point. Super cool talking to you. And man, like, thank you for contributing to the music and all that kind of stuff.
Oh God,
It means a
goodness.
lot, dude. Like,
Of course.
yeah, and we've kind of talked about it in the emails and stuff like that. But like, there are a lot of those times where I don't have a video hit or something like that, and I go, "What am I doing?"
Yeah.
But the fact that you know you and then now we have this little community, the fact that we're all like kind of meshed up and going for it, you've been like a consistent inspiration to keep going, man. And so I thank you, dude.
Thank you. That's very
Yeah,
kind of you.
yeah,
You're more than welcome. I'm more than happy to help if
yeah.
in any little small way.
Well, yeah, right on, man. What do you got? You busy all weekend for the rest of it?
Yeah, I have to go to a K-pop Demon Hunter sing along tomorrow.
You know all the words?
Fuck no.
You got some time, dude. Go go hit the weights and listen to the soundtrack.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm hoping maybe possibly potentially I could stream after that. It all depends on who goes where and what, but maybe I can sneak a little sneaky Sunday stream in there or something like that.
Yeah, man.
Otherwise, I'm trying to let's see. Let me switch my
I'm gonna end
oh
the
how
I'm gonna end the recording right.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.